Okay, so we're going to get started here. And as usual, our first item is public comment. The Pennridge School Board welcomes public comment. According to Policy 903, we remind everyone that the following public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the board. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and note their name and municipality. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer rather than to individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. The speaker may speak once during each comment period. Please note that these sessions are designated for comments. To protect the confidentiality and privacy rights of all members of our community, the board encourages members of the public to direct any comments regarding particular individuals, such as students or district employees, privately to the superintendent or other appropriate administrator, or to communicate with the board privately by sending an email to psdschoolboard@pennridge.org. Questions raised and not addressed may be followed up at a later time. Anybody? Any public comment? There was no one signed up when we first walked in, so I'll say we don't have any. Okay, first item, Sean is going to go through review the contracts on the agenda that we will see again in December.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casper. The first contract is the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, and it is Title I Remedial Reading Services for the 16-17 school year, and this would be services provided at the private schools, which the district is required to do with the Title I fund. So the district contracts with the IUs to provide those services for those students. The second one is also the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, and this is the annual Homestead Exclusion Notice. The IU does that on a county-wide basis, and they're charging us the same rate per parcel as last year. And last year we spent $2,484 on this project. It is required by state law, it's a part of Act 1, that we send these notices out on an annual basis in December to any property that is not already a farmstead qualified property. So this is an annual thing. The third, item C is the Lehigh University, and it's the class of the 2019 junior prom, and it'll be April 21st, 2018, and this is the $2,000 facility fee. The next D is KidsPeace, providing tutorial services for students identified by the numbers on the agenda, and this is $40 an hour. Next is the National Constitution Center. This is South Middle School field trip in June, and the cost is $1,365, and that's an annual field trip at the middle school level. The next one is Michael Fowlin, who is going to provide performance at South Middle School in March 2017, and the cost of that is $2,000. Next G is the MP2 energy contract. This is the contract for the Bucks County buying group for electricity for a 55-month term starting in June of 2017. Cost is $53.85 per megawatt hour, and to compare that, we currently pay $57.96. This contract for the 55-month period will result in about $40,000 in annual savings to the district. So it was a very good time to go to the market for electricity, and Amerex, who is the broker for the Bucks County buying group, did a great job with bringing back savings to all the districts. So this is a contract that you folks at the last voting meeting have given me permission to move forward with these contracts, because it has to be something that's done right away. We can't wait till the next board meeting. So you gave me that permission, so I accepted this deal with this savings, and I'm presenting it to you, the information to you. And it's also attached to your agenda. If you need any more details or if you have any questions, let me know. H is the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, and this is the same as A. This is also Title I services provided at non-public schools, and the cost is $3,661. They're doing the same thing for us for the schools that are in Montgomery County. That's the end of the contract. Are there any questions on that?
That's what I was going to say. Does anyone have any questions about any of those items?
I have a question.
Sure.
And I know this still is under review with the solicitor, but for the agreement for Michael Fowlin, it says that we have to pay him up front, and if there's any act of God, we don't get our money back. So if there's a hurricane and he thinks he can't make it here, then we're paying him even if he doesn't come?
Well, if there's a hurricane, school would be closed.
Well, he's also coming from New Jersey, and not necessarily. I mean, his idea of an act of God and our idea of an act of God may be different, but I'm just saying that I don't know that I like the language of that, because it gives him the out of saying, well, due to this reason, an act of God could be a tree fell on his driveway and he can't get his car out of the driveway. I don't know what he considers an act of God, but I'm leery about the wording of that contract, and I would think that hopefully our solicitor can add a little language to that if he's unable to come, that they can reschedule or we get our money back, that we're not paying him to not come. And then my other question was just out of curiosity, I was just wondering what kind of performance he was given.
Well, that would be in a different committee, I think, that description of his performance. Unless somebody knows off the top of their head, I don't know. And the first part is that our solicitor has already reviewed this, and
It's under review.
It's under
it's
review.
under review.
Yeah.
So that's worth mentioning, I guess, about the act of God thing.
Yes, and I will.
And typically, our vendors, their contract is their contract, but we'll see.
It's probably standard.
Usually they are, and so let's let the solicitor decide, since that's what we pay him for.
And Mr. Cass,
Unless anybody else has issues with that. I don't myself.
I don't have issue with
We can let the board know what it's about.
Yeah.
We can email that out to the board.
and I know that's generally the language, but I know I've had contracts like this in the past that I've been able to have them add an extra sentence or two in there that protects us in that situation.
Any other, Dr. Yarnell?
I just simply want to thank Sean for doing such a good job in the efforts to get this energy contract settled. I think most of us are not accustomed to megawatt hours, we deal in kilowatt hours, but if you translate this is less than 6 cents a kilowatt hour. I think if anybody looks at their either PICO or PP&L electric bill or whomever they get electricity from, you'll find that it's much more than that, 15, maybe as much as 20 cents, the entire package of generation and transmission. So I think this is a really good deal for the district, and I thank you for those efforts.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the second.
Next item is a request for a high school jazz student activity account renewal. The account has been in place in prior years, and they're now asking if to be renewed for this year. And this account was not used very much in the recent past, and now there's a new director in place, so they would like to become more active with the students. So we would like to have your approval to renew that and get the kids started.
Do you know what groups this encompasses? I assume it's the jazz band, but what else, if anything?
Just jazz. It's just jazz.
Just the jazz band?
Grades 9 and 12.
Grades 9 and 12.
They have to audition for a position in the group.
I had a question about the initials. Is that you, Amelia, who signed off on that amount?
Yes, I usually review the balance what they have at the end of the last fiscal year, and so you know how much money they had. And if you remember, because they did not have any advisor at the beginning of this school year, this is why actually they provide this late, because prior advisor, he will be not advisor anymore, therefore they have some problem to find new advisor. And now Mr. Feher, he will be in charge of this jazz account.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering to make sure that someone signed off the
I
balance.
review each item, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on this one? Okay, thanks, Sean and Amelia. We have one more.
The next item on the agenda is a proposed resolution to establish tax collector compensation procedures and rules for the period beginning January 1st, 2018, and following through with 4 years, proceeding the next 4 years. This is something that the board needs to do once every 4 years, based on the local tax collection law, set compensation for tax collectors prior to the beginning of the election cycle, which will begin in early 2017, and then with the final election in November of 2017, and tax collectors taking office to begin their term at the beginning of January. The law establishes that the school board or governing authority must set those compensation rates prior to the beginning of that election process, which is why this is being done so far in advance. And really, our deadline to pass the resolution is, I believe it's February 15th, but we could pass it in December, or we could pass it as late as our voting meeting in January. But this is something that I put on the last finance meeting, provided you with the information regarding the districts in Bucks County, the school districts in Bucks County, provided you with what the district currently pays, and also provided you with the information about the request from the tax collectors. So what we've done is perhaps come to, in this recommendation, come to a compromise. The tax collectors had asked for an increase in the rate from $4 to $4.40, and then another 10 cents for the following 3 years. In a compromise suggestion is a rate of $4.25 over the life of the 4-year period. So I would open this to board members' thoughts.
So let's do that in a second. So the resolution sort of reflects the information that was in the decision brief.
That's correct.
And the highlights, I think you kind of touched on a little bit. And so I think Dr. Yarnell and myself were the only ones that responded, but I think we should, give everybody a chance to weigh in on this if they would like to.
Sure.
Mr. Kraus, you want to go?
Okay, I'll jump in. Sean, I appreciate the information that you sent out to us. It was very thorough and complete, so I do appreciate that. What I'm concerned about is that it appears that the tax collectors working on behalf of Pennridge are already earning 54% more than any other tax collector in any other district. on average. So I'm concerned that we're putting yet more money on the table when we're already the highest paid in the area.
Well, I don't know how, I guess the response would be, we're all gonna have our opinion on that, I guess. So I don't know if we're gonna go one at a time and talk about everybody's opinion. We could, I guess, but I think maybe we should just hear from everyone first and then see where this is headed. Because maybe there's, I mean, it is a compromise. They haven't had a raise in 4 years. Compromise is what we do a lot around here, even when we don't want to. And I know they have, in the past, I don't know if you were here that night, but when they make their presentations, and I don't mean to speak for you guys, but I'm trying to remember what we said. So there's, you know, a few years ago, I learned a lot about the tax collectors, and it was good to learn. So there's a lot of, I've come to believe there are intrinsic things sort of that are, we can't really put values on. The way, the numbers we compare to one another, there's more to it than just the number. There might be stipends involved that didn't show up. I mean, you gave a pretty thorough presentation. I don't want to give your presentation again. But if you have specific questions, or if you think that, I mean, I would have liked to maybe have had that come back sooner so we could see where we're at with it, because once again, it was a compromise. And if I'm not mistaken, I think, you know, you've already presented it to the tax collectors. And they seem to be okay with their representation anyway, and they're okay with the compromise.
I shared the draft resolution with the tax collectors. They had asked me to let them know when this will be back in front of the board so they could be informed and come to the meeting. So I did talk to Sue on the phone, and she, I don't put words in your mouth, but I mean, she said that it was a good compromise that she was happy with. As kind of the spokesperson for the group, she said that they were happy with that.
You know, for myself, I responded okay to Sean because, you know, it was, you know, had a lot to do with the history of the group here in my experience. And I tried to, you know, you guys came up with a decision brief, not me. And I felt that we weren't giving them everything that they asked for.
Correct.
And while at the same time I understood that they seemed to be in a pretty good situation across the county, I still felt that it was, since the administration felt it was a compromise we could live with financially, that's why I supported it back to Sean. Without saying it's the cheapest or it's the highest. That's where I was coming from in that. We're going to hold off on going back and forth with the tax collectors for a minute, unless we'll just all give our 2 cents first, and then if we have questions, I mean, I think if we start negotiating here out into the public, that's not something I like to do. If you could hold on, Sue?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Yarnell, Megan?
I can support this. I know there has been and been involved in a long history with the tax collectors, as I'm sure they will too. And I think this does not cost us a lot of money in the relative scheme of things. We obviously do need to cooperate with our tax collectors. It's no fun when we don't. And to me, I think this is something that will not create severe financial hardship or financial hardship at all for us, and is more than fair from the standpoint of the comparison, as Mr. Krause pointed out.
I'll agree with Mr. Casper and Dr. Yarnell. I think that, you know, what you stated there, it is a compromise on both parts, and I think that this is a fair compromise here. And while Mr. Krause hear what you're saying and understand what you're saying, but I don't think that, you know, from my opinion, that I want to base it just simply on facts, looking on the facts saying, well, we're paying them the highest, so why should they get more? You know, that's not always, to me, while it's relevant, it's not always the argument that holds the most water, I guess you could say, just because they're paid the highest, that they don't deserve more for what they're doing. So that being said, I will support this. And, you know, again, I think it's important too that the relationship between the school district and the tax collectors stay on a positive here, so.
Mr. Regoma?
Well, I don't have a history with the tax collectors, but yes, I'll support this. Sean, you did a fine job. Thank you.
I'm actually not sure if I should participate in the discussion because of personal connections with some of the parties involved, so.
Did you forget one?
I didn't mean to. I kind of looked across, so I apologize for
Isn't that
that.
unusual?
First of all, I have my 2 cents.
No, go ahead.
I was on the board when the negotiations were going on before, and I felt that you received a rather generous settlement. And I know previously, you know, based on the history in previous years, the compensation was below par. So that was a big adjustment, and it was a big adjustment. I like that we're compromising, and I still think it's high. And it is, I just checked, it is apples to apples. Mr. Casper, doesn't sound like it's apples to pears with somebody getting stipends. Some districts, it sounds like it's pretty straight across the board. So I'm not understanding why we're saying that this dollar amount is different than what the other districts are paying in comparison. I did want
I
to.
didn't say the dollar amount was different. I said there were intrinsic things involved with it. As some of you heard, I didn't say the dollar amounts were, I didn't mention the dollar amount.
Well, what are the intrinsic things that brings us to 425 then?
You know, that was something that we went over in Sean's presentation. I just tried to explain with my history with this. I don't have a list of them. I didn't come prepared with a list. I came prepared to support it, so, for all the reasons we just mentioned. So I don't have a specific one, but I didn't mention a specific dollar amount.
Well, you mentioned stipends, and other districts might be getting stipends. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We are above the surrounding districts, but I am happy to hear that I was very uncomfortable with the unreceived expenses. So I'm very happy that that was taken out of the contract. So I guess, I don't know, I'm supporting this, but I'm not thrilled.
Your last one?
So my impression actually was similar to Barry's in that I thought that some of this was offset in the fact that our stipend was different and that our amount per final tax notice issued was different. And I thought that made up some of the difference between ours being the highest. Maybe I'm going to have to look at those details a little more closely, because that was my impression from our prior discussion, was that some of that was offset with some of those other pieces, and that's why ours looked like it was the highest, but maybe I'm missing something.
Okay. So we're trying to see if there's enough support to put it on the agenda. And also, while I was just sitting here thinking some more, I think that Peter touched on it, and you know, Mrs. Schmidt did. You know, they recovered from the last situation, everyone. It's been a good working relationship. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. It's 3-4 years now, right?
4 years.
So that had a lot to do with me, being able to support it. Because there's a value in that, and I'm not sure how to put a number on it, but everybody's getting along. Things seem to be running smoothly. We haven't even mentioned you guys since then. So that's a good thing for me. So that's what I would say would be my, the highlight for me to say go ahead and support it as an intrinsic. Don't know how to put a value on that working relationship, and I think that's important. We don't need another thing claw and fight for every penny over here. We do that a lot. So you guys do a good job. You get elected to do it. And, you know, I thought the compromise that Sean and Dr. Radkin put together was fair enough. So I think there was enough votes here. Mrs. Cullen, at least indications, not votes, that she may or may not vote, and Ada may or may not vote.
That's not what I said.
You said you were,
I said I support it.
okay, well then, so Ada supports it. So we think there's enough support for it to make it to the agenda. And maybe Mrs. Yardley will get a chance to weigh in. You know, maybe she will via email, but if not, I think there's enough support to get it on the agenda. And then maybe in the meantime, you know, maybe Bill, Mr. Kraus has some things he wants to talk about, and we'll answer those questions along the way, so no one feels like we're overpaying. Okay?
Just quickly, I'm sorry, Mrs. Vance Clem, I was trying to get my mic on there when you asked the question. I fumbled around with it a little bit and Barry jumped in, but for the most part, if you go back and you look at that spreadsheet, for the most part, tax collectors throughout the county are paid on, for school districts anyway, they're paid on a per bill basis, some amount per bill. And then there's little differences here and there throughout with some districts. Like we pay for a final notice. Maybe some districts don't do that. It's $1. It would be it's about less than $1,000 for the whole year, divided by all the tax collectors based on their final notices they send out. We do have a stipend for the tax collectors that have less than, I think it's 1,000 bills. It's $1,500. Some districts do that also. Some don't do that. There's one district that just pays their tax collector a flat salary, and you'll see it on that when you get a chance to look back at it. So they are, some are different. Some, you know, you have your outlier that's completely different, but for the most part, it's some way of paying them on a per bill basis is what most of the districts do. We pay on a per bill issued basis. Some districts will pay on a per bill collected basis. So you'll find those little differences in there. But for the most part, it's on some type of a per bill payment.
But so are we, when you're looking at the districts that were paying in a different way, didn't some of those end up being higher than like the salary than what we're paying when you total it up?
Well, it depends which tax collector you're looking at. For instance, like the one district that just pays flat salary, that salary for tax collector is higher than some of our tax collectors and lower than some of our tax, because we have, you know, Hilltown is huge. That township has a lot of tax bills. Then we have some of the boroughs that are very small. They have less than 1,000 bills, so they qualify for the stipend. So it all depends. You kind of have to look at them individually and compare them.
Can you remind me, what is the total, because it's not on this one, I don't have the other note. What is the total difference of cost that we're looking at per year?
Yep. Total difference for cost is $5,059 based on my estimate. Total increase in cost per year.
And we have, how many tax collectors?
What's our total cost?
It's roughly,
8. So it's split between 8 people.
yeah.
60 some,
Total cost is, I know it's in here.
isn't it 60 some?
No, it's a little higher than that. It's around $89,000. Yeah.
So we're going up to 90,000.
Yeah,
Over 90.
it's really, the quarter is a 5.96% increase. But when you look at that over 4 years, it's about 1.5% over 4 years. It's a little less than 1.5%. So it's not over 4 years. It's not an unjust rate over a 4 year period. When you look at that.
It's going to hold steady at the 421.
Yeah, it holds steady for 4 years until the board passes a new resolution.
Thank you for your clarification, and I can support it.
You're welcome.
Okay, so December 5th is the next full board meeting you can show up on. That gives them plenty of time. Doesn't have to be December 5th, but so we'll put it on there and we'll see what happens. Right? I think that's the last thing that I had. But because it's, before we go off, you guys do public comment for facilities. You guys have anything? Anyone want to make any comments? Everybody good? You guys out there? Okay, well then, the next, I don't have it in front of me, the next, we don't have, I don't believe we have a finance meeting. Oh, we do? December 14th. Okay. So that'll be posted soon. So that concludes the finance part.